Welcome to PVT Express News. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos. And now, here's today's content. Welcome to today's special entertainment feature. In an era where everything moves fast, news cycles, trends, even emotions, it's become rare to be truly, quietly moved. We scroll, we watch, we react, and then we move on. Yet somehow, one simple stage reunion managed to slow everything down. When Songyun and Wang stood together again and sang The Best of Us, time seemed to hesitate. The noise faded. The rush paused. And for a few fleeting minutes, something deeper took over. This wasn't just another performance. It felt like a letter written in youth, sealed in memory, and finally delivered 10 years later. And despite the time that had passed, it arrived just as warm, just as sincere. We weren't just watching them sing. We were remembering. A stage without distraction, a moment without defense. That night in Nanjing, there were no overwhelming visual effects, no dazzling stage tricks demanding attention. Strangely, that absence became the greatest presence. When Songyun slowly walked onto the stage, something subtle yet powerful shifted in the air. It wasn't silence in the awkward sense, it was the kind of stillness that forms when emotions begin to gather, when something unspoken is about to surface. Before the audience could even process what they were feeling, the music began. And then it happened. The brain didn't have time to react, but the heart did. Recognition came instantly, almost instinctively. No explanation needed. No build-up required. The melody didn't introduce itself, it simply returned, as if it had never left. At that moment, the stage stopped being a stage. It became a passage through time. Not watching, but returning. We often think of performances as something external, something we observe. But this time was different. We weren't watching them. We were going back to who we used to be. 10 years is long enough to change almost everything. Careers rise and fall. Lives take unexpected turns. People grow, adapt, and sometimes become unrecognizable even to themselves. But this reunion didn't try to dramatize the passage of time. There were no emotional speeches, no forced nostalgia, no exaggerated attempts to remind us of how much has changed. Instead, they simply stood there and sang. Softly. Naturally. Almost effortlessly. And that's precisely why it felt so real. Because nothing needed to be explained. The audience already remembered everything. When a story becomes a memory. The Best of Us was never just a story confined to screens. Over time, it outgrew its original narrative and became something more, a shared emotional language. The classroom. The playground. The rooftop. The quiet glow of evening study sessions. These scenes may have belonged to fictional characters once, but they also belong to anyone who has lived through youth. So when the melody returned, it didn't just carry lyrics. It carried us. We heard the version of ourselves who once loved someone wholeheartedly. The version who felt lost, uncertain about the future. The version who tried hard, failed often, and still kept going. This song didn't just remind us of the past. It reflected us back to ourselves. Imperfect characters, real emotions. Among countless youth stories, only a few characters truly endure. Some fade with time, while others grow clearer, more meaningful. Gung and Lu Xinghe belong to the latter. They were never perfect. Gung wasn't the dazzling heroine people admire from afar. She was hesitant, confused, and ordinary. And because of that, she felt real. Her journey wasn't about sudden transformation, it was about gradual, uncertain growth. Step by step. Mistake by mistake. And maybe that's why we saw ourselves in her. Not as spectators, but as reflections. The courage we slowly lose. If youth stories have one emotion that lingers longer than sweetness or regret, it's this. The courage to give everything, even when the outcome is uncertain. Lixin embodied that courage. He wasn't the ideal male lead. He didn't offer security, stability, or a clear future. By realistic standards, he lacked everything we're taught to value. And yet, he gave everything. He loved without calculation. He expressed without hesitation. He never paused to consider whether it was worth it. That kind of emotional honesty feels almost extinct today. We've learned to measure, to protect ourselves, to predict endings before beginnings. We hesitate. We analyze. We hold back. But Liu Xinghe didn't. He chose to burn first and deal with the consequences later. And that's why he lingers in our hearts. Not just as a character, but as a reminder. That once, we were brave like that too. The kind of change that doesn't break you. In an industry defined by constant reinvention, change is inevitable. Styles evolve. Images shift. Personas are carefully crafted and recalibrated. Yet when Songyun stood on that stage, there was a strange, almost comforting illusion. She hadn't changed. But that wasn't entirely true. Her change simply wasn't visible on the surface. Her gaze had grown steadier. Her emotions more contained. Her presence more layered. And yet, the softness, the gentleness, the quiet clarity remained untouched. That balance is rare. Because time usually takes lightness and replaces it with weight. But she carried both. Maturity, without losing sincerity. Growth, without losing transparency. And perhaps that's why the moment felt so powerful. It didn't feel like revisiting the past. It felt like the past had been carefully preserved. When music unlocks what we hide. Why did such a simple reunion create such a strong emotional response? The answer isn't on the stage. It's in us. We like to believe we've moved on from youth. From school days, first crushes, impulsive decisions, and naive dreams. We've learned to be rational. To be controlled. To protect ourselves. But in doing so, we've also sealed away something softer. Something unguarded. So when the familiar melody begins again, when Songyun and Wang Yuexin stand side by side, those sealed emotions begin to surface. Suddenly, we remember. Youth didn't disappear. It was just waiting. A reunion with ourselves. The people we once loved. The choices we made. The regrets we carry. They don't vanish with time. They settle quietly within us, waiting for the right moment to return. And music, more than anything, has the power to bring them back. So when the best of us was sung that night, we weren't simply revisiting a story. We were reliving our own. That's why the audience fell silent. Why eyes filled with tears? Because in that moment, they weren't moved by performers. They were reunited with themselves. The meaning of that night. We may never go back to those years. We can't undo our choices. We can't relive those exact moments. But perhaps that's not the point. Because that night reminded us of something simple yet profound. Youth doesn't need a farewell. It doesn't require closure. Sometimes, all it takes is a song. And in that song, for just a few minutes, we find ourselves again. Please join the discussion. Feel free to leave comments. Welcome to my channel. Thank you all.